Hola a todos.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to Almeria, the place where fruits and vegetables have their home, just like you and just like myself. And this is the house, the greenhouses. The greenhouses that we can find all over the province of Almeria and all along the coast of Granada, where most of the vegetables we consume in Europe are produced. Vegetables used to maintain a healthy diet more than 500 million European citizens. Thank you for being with us here today in this greenhouse from this experimental station Las Palmerillas from the Cajamar Foundation, and thanks to those following the streaming. That we know you are many, so thank you very much for being here, because this is the third edition of this Congress that is part of Cute Solar, which is a European program of promotion to make known this new method of production in solar greenhouses through Germany, Belgium, and also Spain, of course. And like I said, this is the house of fruit and vegetables, and it is a efficient house that is fed only with green energy. We only need solar power to produce this nut cucumbers that you have behind yourself, or this eggplant, and the different types of tomatoes that I have behind you. Like I said, this is a productive greenhouse. Thanks to the Cajamar Foundation for the collaboration and to help us make this possible and make you come here inside these solar greenhouses, because what better place to discuss the future that is already here, as we have already established in the title of this Congress, and that we would like to know more about with the help of our experts. First of all, I would like to welcome Mr. Francisco Góngora, President of Forte España. Please, you have the floor. Welcome. And Mr. Luis Miguel Fernandez, who is a spokesman of the APROVA, the Association of Organization of Vegetables and Fruit Producers of Andalusia. Let's talk a bit about these solar greenhouses. Francisco, what's the goal of this initiative? Well, the goal remains the same. We are already on the third year of Cute Solar, and we have the same goal, and we have to insist upon it, which is to keep showing the world how good our agricultural model is. That is brought to you by only natural resources. This is something that nature gives us, and we have to make the most of it. And it is better than other models of production, and we have to be very proud of it. We have to believe in it, and we have to show it to the world. And this is what we're trying to do. Luis Miguel, what's the value of the experience of being inside a greenhouse? Well, we are not hot at all. Actually, we're a bit cold. Well, I think the value is because it shows very directly our method of production, and it allows us to tell you the tale of what a solar-powered greenhouse is, showing to the world what is it all about. We believe it's a production system that is sustainable. I think it's the most sustainable thus far, because, well, it's the one that allows the better practices, and also the one that allows a better quality in terms of flavor, and Almeria can attest to that. Well, we have a great example of different flavors of cherry tomatoes that you will be able to see. Please don't take away the tomatoes with you, but you can, of course, see them. This is a promotion program that is oriented to European consumers. So how important are these greenhouses for nurturing the population of Europe? Well, the importance is capital, because this production model, which is specific of natural methods, is the only one that is able to respond to all the demands of the huge population that we have in Europe. Despite the fact that many national authorities don't want to recognize our vegetables as vegetables of the season, and excuse me to insist upon this, we keep highlighting this condition. And this morning, someone was telling me that, oh, we're promoting the mango, like the mango was cultivated in the Basque Country. And no, we are promoting what we have. And these are precisely seasonal fruit, because the seasonal fruit is produced throughout the year, despite what the Minister of Consumption might say, that this is what we have to insist upon. This is our production model. Well, there's a lot of lack of knowledge about this model of production. So what would be the basic ideas that you would like to highlight for the European consumers about what to do and about what our producers do here in Almería? Well, first of all, I would like to say yes, there is a lot of lack of knowledge. And before starting with this program of cultivating the flavor of Europe, we started a promotion, and the result was that the final consumer doesn't know the method of production. He doesn't know it, and he is suspicious, and he associates it with the intensive use of fertilizers and other chemical products. And I think that's just lack of knowledge, and this conception is changing thanks to these programs too. What we pursue is to be able to tell society that is just quite the opposite, that in a solar greenhouse we have the better practices, and we have better biological and ecological and green products, and the place where we can release the predators in a more efficient way to control plagues. And this is something we have to tell the world about. And I think that would be the main goal of these two programs. And of course, to make known for the people that these varieties that they know are being produced precisely in greenhouses. This rough tomato, this fashion watermelon is produced in a greenhouse. The sweet bell peppers are produced in a greenhouse. Well, the ones that you can, these ones are spicy. I don't want to name any trade brands, but all the types that are flavorful are produced in greenhouses. Well, just by the way, if you find a bumblebee, please leave it alone, because bumblebees inside a greenhouse such as this one, they do their job, which is pollinizing. In this Congress, we have discussed the future of agriculture, the future of greenhouses. Are we prepared, are producers prepared in Almería and in the coast of Granada to tackle the needs of Europe for the future? Our producers are prepared, and they are prepared for everything, and this has been proven historically. And up to this day, we have overcome all the challenges that we have had to face. But of course, we are more and more relying upon new technologies and digitalization. But our agricultural model allows for this to be implemented little by little, understanding it very well, and developing in a responsible fashion. So I think we are in line with the future. Luis Miguel, what's the future like for agricultural production in Europe? Well, I think Almería is the future. I think the rest of Europe needs to look to Almería for examples. When we talked about the new Green Deal, and we talk about the reduction of phytosanitary products, we are already doing this in Almería. We've been reducing chemical products for 20 years. And so if you want to look at the future, you have to come to Almería. It is true that we have certain problems, of course, because we have to compete with third country products that don't have the same requirements, not only legal requirements, but customer requirements. But what we would like is equality. So we all have to meet the same demands, both the intracommunitary countries and third country products, because if they don't meet the requirements, and not only the current requirements, but the future requirements, I think that will be a problem. And this mirror clauses, if they were implemented, they could demand the same from third country products, and that would be a step in the right direction. Thank you very much to you all. I let you go back to your seats. You will be helped to take off the microphone, and I would like to give the floor now to the Vice President of ARELF. He's the Assembly of European Regions dedicated to the production of fruits, vegetables, and he is also taking part in this Congress online, Mr. Luis Moulon. I am very happy to be able to intervene as Vice President of AREF and the President of the Council of Producers. Please excuse me for not being able to be here with you today. But waiting for me to be here next time, I would like to deliver this message, because I am convinced that all the producers of fruits and vegetables in Europe need to exchange knowledge to become a strength, to become a lobby strength in Brussels. We are working on several topics, but I would like to highlight just a few of them. First of all, we have to allow the development of the food and vegetable consumption. It's a matter of health, it's a matter of the future of our children, and it's a matter of our quality of life. Secondly, we have been always engaged producers with sustainable development. So we practice sustainable methods of productions, and we team up with research and with innovation. So we are always ready to evolve in a scientific path that allows us to enjoy technology and to make the most of it. In third place, I think we have to exchange even more experiences together on the use of water to produce fruits and vegetables. We have to exchange methods of optimization, more economic methods, more efficient methods, because water is and will be more and more a need for our production. To finish, we have to be vigilant to privilege our productions inside Europe. We have the passion to produce fruits and vegetables inside Europe, to maintain the traceability and the quality of our products and the proximity to our territory. I can't stress this enough. Every time I will have a microphone, I will come back to this. We need to produce European vegetables and fruits on European soil. Mr. President, dear colleagues, I will wish you all a very productive day of work, and thank you very much. Thank you, Jean-Louis Moulon, with his intervention in this Congress and with the participation of ARELF. That is proof to the importance of joining forces to encourage European fruits and vegetables.
Verán, vivimos momentos.
We live in uncertain times now, in terms of the economy and also in terms of the agriculture that is also affected by it. We have inflation, we have energy crisis, Ukraine war. We are still on our way out of a pandemic. So let's try to cast some light upon the future that awaits us. And for that, I would like to give a warm welcome to Mr. Daniel Lacalle. Welcome. Please join me. Thank you for being today here with us. Please be seated here. And I want to highlight my acknowledgement to Mr. Daniel Lacalle, because he joins us in many activities. We are lucky enough to have him. And in this particular occasion, because the calendar was merciful, you are able to be here with us today. Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure for me to be here. Well, we've talked about Ukraine, war, inflation, energy crisis. So what the future looks like, and where's the turning point that we're all awaiting? Well, the turning point is difficult to see it, right? But all of us, all the people taking part in this event, we have lived through very complicated times. So the future is positive, and I think we need to look positively at the future, because of course we have many negative elements, but we have also efficiency, technology. The fact that we have lived through a pandemic, and we have lived the first pandemic in human history where we haven't gone through starvation, thanks, among other things, the agriculture sector that is usually taken for granted, but it keeps working silently. So, of course, I think we are facing complicated times, of course, because right now we are trying to fight inflation, spending more money, and that just doesn't work, because if you spend more money, the inflation consolidates. We are in the middle of a war that can, and presumably will take a long time, but we are also seeing how among all these negative factors, we are not living through an economic depression, but only a ralentization, a deceleration. And I think the agriculture sector has a spectacular future, absolutely spectacular, because everything that happens in the world is proving that investing in food safety, in economic sustainability, and in technological sustainability and environmental sustainability is the only way to face the challenges for the future. Well, you are talking about the role of agriculture during the pandemic and the role that agriculture keeps having during the pandemic to provide healthy food for European citizens. But is this recognized at an economic level and from the institutions? No, nada. All sectors that ensure our supplies, our food, are just ignored. And they are just ignored because we have lived the first pandemic in the history where we haven't suffered any starvation, because we are living through a war between the two main producers of corn, wheat, etc., etc. And since we have still bread, people just take it for granted. And that's very sad. Take things for granted is very sad, because Ronald Reagan said that the worst thing you can do is to take freedom for granted and take prosperity for granted. And I think that this is true. And I think this is something particularly disturbing. Why? Because I think this is the first crisis in the last 40 years at least, where along with inflation, we are experiencing an increase in taxation, and that has a very negative impact in key sectors of the economy, and this cannot be tolerated. The President said before that the importance of sustainability, and the importance of sustainability doesn't exist, because there's nothing that is more unsustainable than losses. We need to have a profitable sector, so it is worth the investment. So we have to stop thinking that we can just take away profitability of the sector and that nothing will happen. We have also to remember that this, all the problems of this sector are not just the things we don't have control over, because in other countries very close to us, we have countries where they establish serious politics to defend this sector, to defend quality products. Do you think this could be a sector we could be proud of? Just like tourism or, for example, sport in our country. Is this a sector that can make us proud as a country and that can put Spain on the map? Yeah, I think this is not only a sector that can be, but it must be. And why? Because now that everyone talks about sovereignty, food sovereignty, and different options to ensure supply, why at the same time we're making more and more difficult life for people who are ensuring this situation? And we need to realize, not only from, well, excuse me the digression, in economy, people like talking about the future, and they like talking about the future, thinking about Star Wars. They think that in Spain, spaceships just blow. They think spaceships fall, and those things they don't happen. Well, we will be talking later about the space. A very interesting presentation. People talk about the future and they think Netflix, they think Facebook, but people don't understand that future means doing exactly the same things, but in a more sustainable or in a more efficient way. And this is exactly what I have behind me. So we have to start thinking that when people told us that we need to change the productive model, aside from being an idiotic idea, we have to realize that we don't have to change anything. We have to realize the oil, the fantastic resource that we have, and the fantastic resource is this sector, because it is recognized all over the world. And it is impressive that you come to Spain from other countries. I just came back from Arizona, and what's the first thing that you see in Phoenix? You see a farming sector. Why? Because the farming sector is a key sector. And you come here and you don't see anything about this that should be not only a label, but a proof for the new generations of where the future lays. What measures do you think, Daniel, that could be implemented to promote this sector? Not only the greenhouses, but the sector in general in this moment. Well, first would be bureaucracy. The big problem of this sector is bureaucracy, because the fragmentation is huge and the bureaucratic problems are also huge. So the profitability is very low in the supply chain. And on top of that, since it's super fragmented, the tax pressure is just brutal. So bureaucracy and taxation, it is just ridiculous that through the supply chain, with more or less 9 different points from the producer to the consumer, you have 9 points where you have a VAT of 20%, 9 times. So taxation and bureaucracy is crazy, and also measures that are taken from a bureaucratic standpoint at the siege of the European Union, with the international agreements and environmental measures that don't take into account the reality of the industry. When we talked about environmental aspects, look at what we have here. This is a marvel in terms of the respect to the environment, and however, it is in some measure are introduced allegedly to protect the environment, but measures that make this activity way more difficult. And even worse than that, they don't solve anything for the environment. We have reduced, for example, now in Europe, the percentage of soil that can be cultivated. We have been reducing it for 20 years, and we are importing more and more from third countries, countries where they don't respect the environment in a coordinated way, because the producers are the ones who know best and who are it's in their best interest to have a top quality product. Daniel Lacalle, thank you very much. Thank you very much for being with us in this solar greenhouse today. Please go back to your seat. Thank you very much, Daniel.
Y vamos ya.
And let's go now to our first presentation of this Congress. As our speaker is preparing, let's watch a video of the Cute Solar campaign. And we will give the floor to Ms. Summer Fayad after that.
En los invernaderos solares del sur de Europa se introdujo hace más de el control biológico de plagas como un método eficaz.
Natural practice that promotes biodiversity and sustainable food production. It's an effective form of pest control and guarantees excellent quality and flavor for our fruit and vegetables. Let's see some of the protagonists. Beneficial insects and mites are able to reduce populations of pests in an environmentally friendly way. Each year, up to 30 billion helpful bugs are released in the greenhouses. Small spiders, bedbugs, lacewings and wasps, among others, which control pests to prevent them from harming the plants. We also have other defenses, such as host plants, double doors, anti-insect netting, and chromatic attraction and pheromone traps. Tireless bumblebees and honeybees ensure our flowers are pollinated so we can grow the best vegetables in Europe.
If you want to find out more, follow the sun. We are from Europe and we're sustainable.
The solar greenhouses of Southern Europe are an efficient, innovative and sustainable.
Greenhouses. The motto this year is "The future is here." And expert scientists, specialists will give us some insight about the future of this sector. Let's talk about our first presentation, water mining, the solar desolation and circular economy. The speaker would be Ms. Samar Fayad Herreras, with more than 20 years of experience in quality control, and she also has a vast experience on vigilance, environmental vigilance, and reports on environmental impact and environmental restoration. She works now in the visitor center of the solar platform of Tabernas. She will be talking about circular economy, and she will be explaining the water mining project that is tackles specifically the fertilized water for greenhouses irrigation, a possible solution for the high energy cost of desalination. So I give the floor to Mrs. Samar Fayad. Welcome. How are you? Well, I haven't stepped into this circle, so you can be the first one. So please, you have the floor. Well, first of all, I would like to thank you for the invitation. I have been working for more than 9 years already, the solar platform of Almeria, trying to explain the avant-garde research that we do that is not very recognized at a national level, that is worldwide. It has worldwide recognition. Well, explaining what we do is my way of living. 10 years ago, this wasn't very important because the scientist was supposed to be in his own corner and society didn't know much about science. They thought it was just too difficult. They didn't know what science did. And of course, science is made for society. Science is made to improve our lifestyle and to answer the questions that we ask ourselves, and it's a basic part of our societies. Things have changed because in the new projects, the explaining what we do has counted on greater and greater budgets, and this has made that we also have new method to make known to the world what we do in the new projects. We are working now, for example, with a social openness, so the society can take part in the project, and this more collaboration and interdisciplinary methods are the ones that we are implemented currently. I am working in the water mining project, which is a European project with the 2020 horizon that has the goal to guarantee the access to clean water and sanitation through the development of innovative solutions for the sustainable use of water alternative sources, such as waste water, urban and industrial, of course, and desalination of seawater. What we want with this project is to implement innovative technologies to better the desalination, to extract phosphates and other bioproducts from the waste water, and to enhance the circularity of the use of water in the industry. We have 38 partners in this project from 12 European countries. The budget is roughly 20 million euros, and now we are in the middle of it. The duration of the project is 4 years, and we will finish by August 2024. What's the concept of sea mining? We propose the desalination of seawater as the only solution to water scarcity. But, of course, this has a series of environmental challenges. For example, the high energy consumption of desalination and the production of brine, that is waste, after all. And it's a more and more concerning waste because it is estimated that we have a production of brine of 150 million cubic meters a day. In this map, you can see the dark zones. The darker, the more brine they produce in terms of millions of cubic meters. And, well, half of these 150 million of cubic meters are generated in the Persian Gulf and the Red Sea, seas that are already very, very high levels of salt. I am talking here only to coastal desalination plants, but this is not only the problem, because if we look at desalination plants more than 50 kilometers from the coast, the brine production is also very important. So what are we going to do with this brine? What is brine? Brine is just nothing but concentrated seawater. Here we can see some of the elements of the seawater. For example, we have sodium, magnesium, calcium, potassium, manganese, chlorides, sulfates, and part of these products that can be used as fertilizers in agriculture, so they could be an added value. And aside from all this, we also can see this other solutes. 34 parts per million, which is a small quantity, but what are these solutes? Well, many of these solutes are the ones highlighted here in this periodic table. Elements as important as lithium, gallium, many elements that are used more and more, especially to renewable energies because of batteries, for example. And this colors what they tell us is that we have a scarcity. The red ones, we have a serious threat in the next 100 years. So the demand is increasing, the availability is decreasing, but these minerals are in the seawater in little concentrations, but this can open opportunity for the market. The water mining projects in these 12 countries, we have 6 case studies. 2 of them are about desalination from the solar platform, and another one in Lampedusa in Italy. 3 about urban mining, from taking elements out of the urban wastewater in Portugal, in Cyprus, and in Barcelona, and 1 about industrial mining in the port of Rotterdam. This is the project. Well, when it comes to Almería, the solar platform in Almería, we have been studying for a long time, not only the production of electricity, but also the application. And we've been doing some desalination with thermal energy. And in this little distillation plant, we have a nominal water flow of 8 cubic meters an hour, and we could obtain 3 cubic meters an hour of distilled water. This is a small plant, but this was being done before this project, so we were a bit more forward. What we have done, of course, the work temperature is 70 degrees. So what we do with this devices here is we take the water and heat it up to 70 degrees to evaporate it and distill it. The part that we have implemented with the water mining project is what we do with these elements and what we will do with the brine. We can obtain before desalination. We use mesh to nanofiltrate and to separate the seawater. Many of these salts have high value as fertilizers for agriculture. And when we separate them, we can also rise a bit the temperature of production. And when we raise this processing temperature, we can take these heat from the thermal plates and from the parabolic cylinder, something that it's already functioning. We can extract part of this residual heat and use it for the desalination process. And then we distill the water and we treat it. We obtain a product, and this product, we can add to this product part of this salt, so it could be directly used for fertilizers. So what we would have is a brine with a high concentration of sodium chloride that could be evaporated, crystallized, and presumably we would try to obtain high quality sodium chloride salts. This is still in a very initial state. What are the technological goals? Well, being, of course, more efficient, but to contaminate less, be more sustainable in the extraction of minerals and bioproducts, and have a zero waste policy, something that might be expensive, but it is definitely possible. But the interesting part is not only the technological goals, but also the social goals. What we want to do with this project, and a high part of the budget, is to make this project a co-creation with the society. So the goals, the other goals of water mining, are to raise awareness, promote new commercial models of circular economy, for example, taking the opportunity of this brine, attract public and private capitals to improve these technologies, and very important, to develop politics and regulations, because we need to change the paradigm for desalination without renewable energies. We have to tackle this because the future, as Mr. Lacalle has mentioned already, is based upon sustainability. So let's try to develop a regulatory framework to favor those who work with more sustainable measures. Well, how we coordinate all this? About a community of practices, or COP, which are social learning systems that could bring together different people from different origins and perspectives with a common goal, for example, in this case, the water, and they are concerned about a particular problem and they want to improve it through regular interaction between them. A methodology that can allow feedback from the different partners and also from society. We incorporate into the project the social values we are working on this too, and we have conducted interviews, online service meetings to show our project and to gather feedback. What is interesting for society to make of this project a co-creation, so we can incorporate the society insights into our project. For these meetings, we have, of course, looked for people that might be of interest for the project, and as you can see here in the chart of the origin of the different people that have been part of this community of practice. Of course, agriculture is the most important because water is crucial in Almeria. So we have welcome public companies, public administrations, technology companies, greenhouse companies that, based upon reducing the hydrological footprint, of course, also the academia from research centers, from activists too. We have welcomed also members, and well, amongst all of them, we have established a series of values that we deem to be important for this project, and these are the values: to have a resources security. We have sun, we have water, security in the access to water, equality in the access to water, high efficiency, mitigation of climate change, because of course if we use renewable energies we will mitigate climate change, recover degraded underground water reserves, and of course that will allow to produce more sustainable products because we will have more sustainable water. Well, aside from values, we have also tensions, challenges. Tensions can grow up to barriers, and for example, the ownership of water, because you don't know who water belongs to. Usually investments in water management is public, but then the profit is private, and this is complicated. Also, the expansion of agriculture, because when we solve the problem of water, we don't solve, for example, the degradation of underground reserves, so we generate an expansion of agriculture, and we need to find a balance between the availability of water and the expansion of agriculture. We need to reach a balance also here. The use of soil, the use of land. We have a greater use of soil. Of course, not only we need the soil for the plant, but also to cap the energy, and that takes a lot of space, of course. And we are competing not only with agriculture but also with tourism, and this generates tension, of course. And the agriculture to export. Well, if we produce sustainable water, but then we export our product generating a carbon footprint, well, that creates tensions, because then the export trip is not so circular for the economy. And of course, we have encountered a series of barriers. We have identified already these barriers, and we have prioritized some of them, because sometimes tackle all of them at once is just complicated. So here we have a lot of problems, for example, with illegal extractions of water, and this is difficult to quantify because most of them are inside the greenhouses. We can't see them with a drone or anything, but we deem them to be many. For example, the grants, the hidden grants, because the water is not subsidized, but the resources to extract it is, and that establishes a competition with our project. and of course bureaucracy that already Mr. Lacalle has mentioned, because this is well, he mentioned the bureaucracy in this sector, but I would say bureaucracy everything. This is a problem in every sector. Well, here you can see the list of what we have done. Like I said before, we are now in the equator of the project. We have mentioned in the research group that the community of practice is being very useful for us researchers, because it is giving us an idea of where to go, or what are the things that concern the most. And these interactions generate consensus too. So at the end of the day, we can validate what we do with society, and we can move in the same direction that society is moving. So when the project is being completed, at least in the technology part, we won't face any problem with the social part, because the society will be on board and will be looking forward to implementing it, because water scarcity is a current problem, especially with climate change. So the fact that this project is being already approved and validated by society can speed things up. The project, we want to inaugurate also a living lab, which would be an encounter of co-creation to keep learning, to keep developing, to keep debating, and the inauguration will be next week, and this living lab will be called Sustainable Desalination, and it goes beyond the project. The project will end in 2024, but this has come to stay. This living lab in Almeria will be dedicated to this, and this living lab will gather a series of activities, always in relation with desalination. So we, as I said, we'll keep learning and we'll keep improving in the desalination. Well, that's all from me. Thank you very much.
Gracias, Samar.
Nada.
Por tu ponencia, pero también porque has respetado el tiempo escrupulosamente.
¿Ah, sí?
Y eso es algo muy importante en Inversolar, porque si respetáis vuestro tiempo tenemos más oportunidades para que se dirija directamente a ti, para conocer más sobre lo que hoy nos has contado. No sé si hay alguna pregunta, si hay alguna cuestión, levantáis la mano y Lina se acerca con el micrófono para que podamos trasladarle a Samar la cuestión. Mientras tanto voy rompiendo yo el hielo, ¿vale? Este proyecto, ¿cuándo podría ser comercial y qué coste tendría?
A ver, coste, mira, no tengo ni idea. Me preguntas cosas ya, vamos, que trascienden. ¿Cuándo podría ser? Bueno, todavía tenemos que acabar la investigación y todavía tenemos que consensuarlo. O sea, si es verdad que realmente está, digamos, aprobado socialmente, ¿no? Sí que hay mucha urgencia por tener agua. Yo creo que, y además agua sostenible. Ahora mismo ya se está obligando desde Europa a que todas las desaladoras pues lleven energía sostenible, ¿no? Energía renovable. Se hace con placas fotovoltaicas, pero bueno, esto es una alternativa también. Esperemos que cuando acabe no sea mucho después que se pueda. Yo creo que por ahí va Europa, que quiere implementarlo, por eso está cambiando tanto también el tema de las políticas y las medidas regulatorias, para que sea una obligación.
¿Ese es un sistema que encaja especialmente bien con los invernaderos o que se puede adaptar a cualquier tipo de
se
forma
puede
de
adaptar,
cultivo?
lo que pasa que aquí necesitamos agua, nuestros acuíferos están ahí pasándolo bastante mal.
Están ahí.
Y entonces el hecho de poder hacer agua fertilizada me parece que le da un valor añadido. A lo mejor en otros puntos para agua potable pues no se piensa tanto en eso y se trata la salmuera digamos en bruto, pero nosotros sí que esta nanofiltración puede dar.
No tenemos ninguna para pedir. Sí, aquí. A Lola Gómez Ferrón, muy bueno.
This is Lola Gomez Ferran, welcome. Yeah, Samar, well, congratulations. I wanted to make you a comment and also to ask you a question. Maybe the sentence that I will pronounce now was going to be a bit definite. But like the same way that we've been gathering garbage at home in just one bucket, And we have come to the realization that if we separate this waste, we can improve circular economy. I think with the seawater, we are experiencing the same thing. We are just throwing things into the water, and we are talking we're putting all together, calling it brine, and putting it back to the sea. Maybe it's a bit premature, but since it is very surprising for me that we don't have more of these projects, because no one is talking about this. Not the media, not the administration, not the scientists. I am very pleased to be a part of this project, and I hope that we can all lobby for the European Union finance and fund more of these projects. Because David told you, asked you about the cost. So, in order for us to make the most of at least 38% of these metals present in the sea water, I don't know what we could do in the sector to demand more and more this project. Well, that's why I think make this known to the public is important. I think to make Living Lab very visible and give it visibility, because it will make Almeria an important point of sustainable desalination. I think we are already doing this, but it's very scattered. And I think this type of living labs, because of the necessity of an arid zone with a brutal production of fruits and vegetables with very little water, I think Living Lab can put this on the map from now on. And so I think we just need to, make this visible, give this visibility, so people will understand this, like they understood recycling. Well, thank you very much, Lola, for your question. I don't know if we have any more questions. We're talking about with to Tamar Fayed about sustainable water through desalination. We mentioned before that we obtain high quality salts. So we do is there a market for this salt? Well, we aspire to be able to this Malden salt, but way more sustainable, because the Malden salt production process is very demanding in energy. But I think this high quality salt can be used in gastronomy. That's the goal of the research. The importance of this social aspects is to be able to explain to society the technological limitations, because ideas are ideas, but then when we go back to reality and we have to take into account economy, for example, we have to face more problems. So this is the idea. Well, we don't know. That's the idea. So sustainable salt. We need a name for this, because Malden salt, everyone knows about that. So we need a catchy name for it. So please tell me about when you convey this project to the companies, the sector. Is it interesting? Are they surprised? They say, well, when can we start? Yeah, of course, and of course, like you said, because these facilities, I don't know the cost, because of course it depends on the scale and the method to obtain energy. But the initial investment cost is very, very high, because it's way higher than desalination plant. If you just plug it in, it's just easier. But if you have to take this energy from the sun, the initial investment is higher. But yes, people are very motivated. They think this looks good, so they are just asking when. And this, of course, depends on the European funding and the legislation. I am taking part in the political part, and the legislation seems to be changing. This is what I perceive, but I am nothing but a worker. So I don't know the intentions. Well, thank you very much. I encourage you to keep working, and let's keep in touch. Thank you very much. Well, I think we have another video where we will keep learning about solar greenhouses, and we will give the floor to the second of our speakers today.
Solares del sur de Europa son un modelo eficiente, innovador y sostenible, capaz de alimentar a 500 millones de europeos al año. Pero además, cuidan de nuestro planeta. Más del 90% de nuestros agricultores cumplen con los más exigentes sistemas de certificación y normas de buenas prácticas agrícolas, estando asesorados por expertos agrónomos, tanto en temas de cultivo como en gestión de residuos y reciclaje. Retiramos el 95% del plástico que generamos y reciclamos el 80%, situándonos a la vanguardia del reciclaje nacional con más de 100.000 toneladas al año. Esto representa un 10% del total del plástico reciclado en nuestro país y es el equivalente a más de 1,5 millones de botellas de refresco. Así lo hacemos. Los plásticos de cubierta presentan el mayor volumen de residuos plásticos generados y se llevan a plantas recicladoras autorizadas, donde se transforman en granza y se les da una segunda vida en forma de mobiliario urbano, nuevos recipientes o combustible líquido.
Somos de Europa, somos sostenibles. Si quieres saber más, sigue al sol.
¿Han visto alguna vez los invernaderos solares como una gran fábrica de carotenoides con la que alimentar al mundo de una manera sostenible y saludable? Pues ese es el enfoque de la siguiente ponencia, el que nos trae a continuación Antonio Jesús Meléndez. Es licenciado y doctor en farmacia por la Universidad de Sevilla, donde es catedrático de nutrición y bromatología. Pertenece al grupo de investigación Color y Calidad de Alimentos. También ha trabajado en las universidades de Liverpool, Londres y en la Universidad de Tufts. En Estados Unidos trabaja en la producción sostenible de alimentos saludables con énfasis en los carotenoides y sus derivados. Ha publicado más de 100 artículos científicos y ha sido investigador principal en diversos proyectos. Ha dirigido redes internacionales sobre carotenoides y derivados en agroalimentación y salud, en las que han participado investigadores de más de 50 países. Así que vamos a recibir a Antonio Meléndez, por favor. Muy buenas, bienvenido.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias por estar con nosotros.
Gracias a vosotros.
Vamos al círculo y adelante.
Buenos días. Bueno, pues quiero empezar, si me lo permitís, con una pregunta. ¿Pensáis que hago demagogia si digo que los invernaderos son centros avanzados de conocimiento? ¿Por qué lo digo? Por muchas razones, pero fundamentalmente por dos. Primero, son hitos tecnológicos de primera magnitud. Es decir, ahora lo vemos como el pan nuestro de cada día, pero llegar aquí, hubo conocimiento en común y darse cuenta pues, que este sistema de producción permitía producir más, producir calidad y haciendo un sostenible de los recursos. Yo también digo esto porque los invernaderos son las casas de las plantas. Las plantas son seres inteligentísimos. Podría poner muchísimos ejemplos. Es decir, se puede decir que relativamente hace poco tiempo los seres humanos, que se supone que somos la especie más evolucionada del planeta, hemos aprendido a transformar la energía infinita del sol en energía eléctrica. Por ejemplo, las plantas llevan transformando la energía del sol en energía química desde hace millones de años. Durante el doctorado en la Universidad de Londres, pues asistí a muchas clases sobre ciencia de las plantas, porque era el tema en el que estaba trabajando por aquello entonces. Y hubo un mensaje que se me quedó grabado. Y ese mensaje es que las plantas son tan inteligentes que cuando hacen una cosa no es por una razón ni por dos, sino por muchísimas. Pues podríamos decir que han ido adquiriendo sabiduría durante cientos de millones de años y en esa evolución de las plantas, los compuestos que son muy conocidos, que son los carotenoides, han tenido mucho que ver explicaré más tarde. Bueno, pues uno de los 4 mensajes claros que quiero dar en esta es que todas las personas que trabajamos en agroalimentación, agricultores, técnicos, ingenieros agrónomos, gerentes de cooperativas, científicos, técnicos, etcétera, tenemos que a una y es producir alimentos saludables de una forma más sostenible. ¿Qué ocurre? Bueno, pues los alimentos son nuestro sustento. Las frutas y hortalizas son sustentos para el ser humano, pero cada vez somos más en el planeta. Comemos varias veces al día los que tenemos. Tenemos que recurrir siempre a la datos sobre alimentación y salud. Bueno, pues, desgraciadamente, más de 8 millones de personas desnutridas en los tiempos que corren. 151 millones de niños aproximadamente están raquíticos. Triste, ¿verdad? 2.000 millones de personas tienen deficiencia de micronutrientes. Y aquí hay una ironía. Más o menos la misma cantidad de personas, 2.000 millones de personas, sufren obesidad o sobrepeso. Es decir, tenemos malnutrición por defecto y malnutrición por exceso. Irónico. La prevalencia de la diabetes se ha multiplicado en 30 años. Las dietas no saludables son la principal causa de enfermedades. ¿Qué ocurre con la alimentación y el medio ambiente? Tenemos que comer, pero tenemos que aprender a producir alimentos de la forma más sostenible posible para no comprometer los recursos para las generaciones venideras. Bueno, pues la producción de alimentos es la principal causa de cambio ambiental. No lo podemos evitar, de nuevo tenemos que comer. La transformación de sistemas naturales para producir cultivos, ganado, pues al final se crea una presión que se puede traducir en pérdida de biodiversidad. La alimentación pues, utiliza el 40% de la tierra, el 70% del agua dulce y también contribuye a la emisión de gases del efecto invernadero. Mal uso de nitrógeno y fósforo pues, puede llegar a producir problemas como eutroficación y aparición de zonas muertas en y demás. Pero bueno, podemos hacer. Es decir, si todos vamos a una, si todos los que vamos a una, pues vamos a conseguir seguir produciendo alimentos sostenibles y saludables y preservar los recursos del planeta. ¿Qué tenemos que hacer todos? ¿Hacia dónde tenemos que confluir? Bueno, pues podemos hacer muchas cosas, pero podemos reunirlas en grandes bloques. Usar los recursos más eficientemente. Aquí los invernaderos, el no va más, energía, tierra, agua, fertilizantes, etcétera, etcétera. Nosotros también podemos contribuir mucho a hacer pequeños cambios en nuestras dietas, aumentar el consumo de alimentos que proceden de las plantas, frutas, hortalizas, cereales, legumbres, secos, y disminuir el consumo de alimentos que son ricos, por ejemplo, en azúcar, en ácidos grasos saturados, en sales, disminuir un poco el consumo de estos alimentos. Y el tercer bloque es reducir el desperdicio alimentario transmisible. Es decir, un tercio de los alimentos que se producen en la Tierra no acaban en nadie. Cuando hay 2.000 millones de personas, 820 millones de personas están perdidas. Bueno, pues como digo, lo vamos a conseguir y para conseguirlo debemos ser positivos. Segundo mensaje, los carotenoides son compuestos versátiles, saludables y esenciales para la producción de los alimentos.
Well, I have been working for 20 years in different universities, and it is not fair that many people do not know, most of people do not know this, and this is the fault of the scientists, because we do not take a moment to communicate this to people. We should communicate with general population, because this is a way, this is a simple way, because we are working for general population, right? So I've been learning, well, during my history and pharmacology university degree, I learned that they are natural components, that they are also responsible for the green, yellow, and reddish color in the food. And one of the factors that are most impacting our election in a supermarket, it is the visual appearance, and color is so important here. So I have also learned that some of these carotenoids are also the vitamin A precursors. This vitamin A is so essential for life and with the widest spectrum of activities. So these natural pigments are very important here. But this is only the tip of the iceberg. So nature invented carotenoids thousands of years before people were able to see. So before animals had color vision, they were invented. So do you believe that nature was going to use resources to synthesize these components for no reason? No, they were invented actually to interact with light, to intervene in photosynthesis. But the colors are being masked by chlorophyll. So what happens when the autumn comes? So the green of the chlorophyll decays, and this is the reason why we see the leaves in yellow and reddish colors. So they were invented by plants to intervene in photosynthesis. Thousands of years later, we found carotenoids in humans. And do you know where we can find the biggest concentration of these carotenoids? In the macula lutea. This is this part of the eye where the light impacts the most during vision. So humans, we have learned to use this in the macula and in other sites. Also, many other living beings, they have been using this for other purposes. But what do? Well, they use carotenoids are useful for photosynthesis. They intervene in light collection, and they also protect against oxidation. So if we have plants with oxygen and an excess of light, this is a lethal combination. And this is why carotenoids are so important for photoprotection. We have said that it is good for vision. Also, they are used for interspecies communications through color, for pollination, seed dispersal, mating between different animal species. They are also good for protection against oxidation, as I mentioned before. And did you know that microalgae, they are also very trendy nowadays? They know that this is good for the reproduction of fish, of cattle, but also carotenoids are also reservoirs of many derivatives. These derivatives, they open up the different purposes of these components. Also, they are good also for the communication through aromas, flowers, food. They are also good insect repellents. They are also useful for sexual attraction by pheromones. And I would also like to underline that they are also of hormones, of different components that are good for regulation in different processes. But I would like to see this in a context. So carotenoids are essential for the production of food in the world. So what is photosynthesis if not the engine of the life in the earth? We have CO2, we have water, and we have light, and we produce glucose and oxygen. And this oxygen is essential for us to breathe. And starting with glucose, the plants, they are able to produce everything. So photosynthesis, it is the main factory of life in planet Earth. So along with some other natural pigments that are so important for pollination and for the seed dispersal, germination, so these multiply the food. Also, this is good for the hormones. These hormones intervene in the dissemination of seeds, and seeds are the project or a future plant. So this hormone also helps to make these plants more resistant to drought and drought that we have in different areas in Andalusia. And without this hormone, these plants will not be surviving when they have a deficiency of water. Also, we have some other hormones derivative from carotenoids, where in osmosis with fungus, they also intervene in the production of food. And I would like to make an hypothesis. Plants that are so wise, they offer us carotenoids and some other healthy components, because if they are helping us with our health, they are also helping themselves with their own preservation. So let's say that carotenoids are key for food production, for the survival of the plants, and in order to feed the whole planet. So what happens with the carotenoids in health promotion? Well, they are not magical. We have different researchers that says that they have actions or purposes that are beneficial for human being, but in a diet we have many other components. So these are components that we want to have in our diet because we know that they are good for us, but they are not magical. But all in all, they are essential in order to fight against the vitamin A deficiency. And as I mentioned before, this is the vitamin with the widest spectrum of purposes, and regrettably, this deficiency is responsible for the death of thousands of children in poor countries, also for the bad health of many mothers, and for the lack of vision in many people. So they contribute to reduce. It is not like it is a magical or curative component, but they help to diminish the risk of suffer from cancer. They are also for immune response, for bone health, eye health, and skin health. So we want to have them in our diet for sure. Also, as they are so versatile, they are also used for cosmetics. So Cleopatra used saffron makeup. Also, the Native Americans, they also use makeup made of ashiot seed that is very rich in carotenoids. Carotenoids, they also contribute, along with melanin, to the skin color. And because if we raise our consumption of fruits and vegetables rich in carotenoids, we're going to have this skin color that is perceived as something positive. And we can do it just by raising our consumption. It is important to allocate money for the research and investigation in agri-foods rich in carotenoids. Yes, it is. It is so important for photosynthesis, ecology in agri-foods, aquaculture, nutrition, public health, and cosmetics. So let me tell you where we can find those carotenoids. Well, in all fruits and vegetables. For instance, in the greenhouse, typical veggies like peppers, lettuce, broccoli, also in some other veggies, for instance, the green or the reddish one, like these two kinds of peppers, tomato, some pumpkins. Also in the color of the olive oils, very typical in the Mediterranean diet. And also we find it in peaches, in oranges, mangoes. And the third message I would like to share, well, you know it better than myself. So greenhouses are essentials for the sustainable production of sustainable food. So we need to collaborate, we need to talk among each other, we need to So the entrepreneurs, the technicians, the agro-food engineers, we need to be in contact. And you know it better than myself. So using the greenhouses, we can produce more, better, and even spending less. So we need to keep on innovating in those. And lastly, in order to achieve a high impact, we need to work as in a network and communicate in an effective way. So the investigation of the research in carotenoids have been pushed in the last years using some networks, Latin America, and we are now working in order to broaden our networks. But this is not even enough. We need to keep on working with the farmers, with the entrepreneurs, with the agri-food engineers in order to offer our knowledge and put it together. And especially researchers, we need to be able to communicate more and better and participate in events like this one. So this is just to show you that we have audiovisual resources, and even in the Spanish network, we have a comic book for children in order to understand this concept. So many thanks for your invitation and for your attention too. Hello, Antonio. So what is this? What is this? Oh, yes, tomatoes. Right. Yes. So, yeah, let's taste it. So, our apologies, but after listening to Antonio, this was due. And if anyone in the audience would like to taste, please say it so. So this is the time for questions. So that the audience can take the microphone and ask Antonio. And well, I have also my own questions here in case you don't have any questions. So the first question related to what the España president mentioned before. We are nowadays in a time where we have many different schedules about fruits or stationary fruits or veggies, and sometimes we forget about this process we have here in the greenhouse around us. Even for the consumer, it would be a bit confusing for the consumer, but it has to do about consuming more of this and not something else. Yeah, for two reasons: promoting your health. So diet and nourishing is very complex. So any of us, we are having thousands of components in our diet, not hundreds, thousands. We have different lifestyles and we have different genomes and microbiomes. So it is very difficult to be systematic in nutrition, but we can agree that if we increase the consumption of fruits and veggies, we are increasing our health, and also they are sustainable food. So are they, is it more difficult because sometimes we buy those in bulk, we do not have many information about them, you know, those other products, the superfoods, you know, about, you know, where there is lots of advertisement about what they have and how healthy they are. So fruits and vegetables, do they have this disadvantage, this problem about communicating information to the average consumer? Yes, I believe we need to increase our communication. So I come from this region between Cordoba and Sevilla, and we are used to these very tasty fruits that are also very healthy. So we need to learn that many of the components that are so publicly advertised, we have them in our greenhouses, and we have to start having those since we are children. So we need also to fight against that kind of advertisement that is intended to children. So food that is intended for children. So we need to fight for the sustainable foods. So yeah, you have mentioned about this, like regulated advertisement. And I always say what happened in this country about tobacco. Who has thought that the consumption of tobacco could be reduced so drastically that we could reduce also the advertisement and the consumption of tobacco everywhere? And in the end, we were able to manage. So may this happen in the future with some foods that are not really good or healthy? Yes, I would like to think it is possible in the future, because we only have one planet, and we have many species that are going to live after us, the microorganisms, but human beings, if we do not change our ways, something is going to happen. And we need to bet on anything that is healthy for us, anything that is sustainable and healthy for us. We need to really support the consumption of these products. I don't know if we have any questions around the audience. Well, we don't have a very interactive audience today, and I like it very much when they are very interactive. So the green pepper is the one that has the bigger, the higher amount of carotenoids. Well, it depends on the production details. But when you have a vegetable or a fruit that is the greener it is, the more carotenoids they are going to have. And then one thing it is about the number of carotenoids in a product, but then it is the number of carotenoids that are going to be processed by the human body, by the system. So there are many things to say about it. Well, we have a very quality audience here, but in general, society find it difficult to have 5 pieces of 5 fruits or 5 vegetables per day. So we know that we need to do it, that is very healthy, and that the cherry tomatoes that we have tasted a minute ago were so tasty. And so what is the reason why we find it so difficult to have this diet? Well, we have some studies of some other colleagues back in Scotland, and I like to talk about cosmetics. I have, I have teenagers at home, and if you tell them that this is healthy, maybe they are not taking it. But if you say that they are going to have a better skin color, then it could be a good item to entice them to consume those vegetables. So we come from the pandemic, and we are still, getting off this pandemic era, and the consumption of fruits and vegetables have been rising during pandemic. So have we learned anything during this time? I'm not really sure about it. Well, there are different ideas about it. But in my last 20 years teaching in university, every single year I see that the youngest, they are more and more concerned about it. So 10 years ago, nobody cared about obesity, but nowadays, we need to be aware of this, and especially for the youngest, health and sustainability is something that they have in their minds. And I think there is going to be this breaking point at some time, and in a short while, the youngest will be increasing their consumption of fruit and vegetables. Many thanks for your intervention, and big applause for him. So now we have another video in order to get to know very briefly the work that is being done in the production of fruits and vegetables here in the solar greenhouses.
The area of solar greenhouses in southern Europe is known for its arid terrain, and it was sparsely populated until 60 years ago, when the largest and most productive agricultural project in history was launched. Solar greenhouses. They managed to turn the desert into a vast vegetable garden. And thanks to the work of more than 14,000 families of farmers, we currently generate more than 45,000 direct jobs and 100,000 indirect jobs in the region, 60% of which are held by immigrant workers from more than 140 different countries. They are people who've spent years working together with farmers and their families, learning the trade and the language, and even undertaking new business ventures. Southern Europe is a leader in incorporating immigrants to the working world, making the area an example of integration and coexistence.
If you want to find out more, follow the sun. We are from Europe, and we're sustainable.
Can you imagine that we could forecast the future? Well, in some cases we do, or we try to, and sometimes even we are successful in it. So I was not thinking about the weather forecast, but because here in Almeria they are not very accurate. So artificial intelligence to forecast the to anticipate the agri-food market. So this is the name of the presentation we're going to have now by Mar Grande. In her research is also using the machine learning and the deep learning in order to predict the wave of the market, and she's also as data scientific in growing data. So understanding the market is a key task, more and more important, especially in order to obtain sustainable agri-food production systems that are equitable. And we will see how this deep learning, artificial intelligence, and also the deep learning is going to help us to forecast the market, the pricing crisis, and also to avoid the food wastage. So we welcome now Mar Grande. So good morning, Mar, and welcome. Many thanks. So the floor is all yours. Yes, many thanks for this presentation, and many thanks to the organizers for giving me the opportunity to be here. My name is Mar Grande, and I'm going to talk about how artificial intelligence can help us to anticipate the agri-food market developments. First of all, I would like to explain why it is necessary to anticipate on this kind of projects in the agri-food sector and how we can benefit from them. So agri-food system, or the food system in the European Union, offers food for more than 400,000 consumers on a daily basis. But nowadays, production systems, they are also the ones producing 1/3 of the greenhouse gas that we have. And in society, we have both cases of obesity and malnutrition. So one of the main purposes of the European Union for 2030 is to change to some sustainable food systems, guaranteeing the nutrition of all citizens that are resilient against crisis and that also are sustainable. So one of the strategies they are promoting, it is from the farm to the table, farm to fork strategy, as you can see on the right-hand side of the slide. So using better and in a more efficient way the resources. So we are not going to be able to have sustainable food system if we do not tackle the big problem of food wastage or spillage. So we estimate that 40% of everything that is produced in the land is not available for the consumers. I mean, products do not even reach the supermarket, and this is being this is waste, food waste, and this is waste because it is a very volatile market, and we can see that this high volatility, especially because there is this sharp differences between demand and offer, makes that many of this food is becomes waste. And this is something that happens on a daily, on a yearly basis. And in order to see the magnitude of this variation, if you ask yourself how many weeks there is a price variation of more than 20 cents between products, so we have some campaigns for 40 40 weeks, and for instance, in the case of zucchini, we have this variability is more than 33%. In the case of eggplant, this will be a 27% of the campaign with a variation of more than 20 cents. And this is where artificial intelligence can help us, because if we know, if we can anticipate the price that they are going to have this sort of crops, we know also the volume of products we are going to have available and the real demand, and where this demand is based, we can establish better strategies for trade and marketing, making it more efficient, reaching the markets that are really going to consume those products. And this is going to help us to reduce the waste of food and also to generate higher margins or profits in the sector. And now I would like to explain what is this process of anticipating or forecasting prices is. So here in the upper graph, we see the price of the zucchini starting in 2013 until 2022. And then in order to get more information about the variation along time, we divide it in three components. The first one will be the trend, the graph that is below. And the trend is giving us the general direction of the market. And here we can see that in the last campaign and in this one, the trend is very is going up. And these are campaigns that had very high prices, but the drops in the price of these products, we didn't realize. The next component is the seasonal variation. We can see in this case that the zucchini has a very high peak in the first weeks of the year. It is always the same trend, all in all. And then the residual price, there are random variation due to external factors. In the case of zucchini, it's a very volatile product, and as you can see, this residual component has a high volatility. And now if we analyze, for instance, this sort of tomato, in the first graph, we know we have the graph with the price since 2013 until 2022. And then right below, we have the trend that has an upper, it has a trend going upwards from 2013 until 2022. And then if we analyze this, the seasonal factor, it doesn't change very much from one campaign to the next. But in the last two campaigns, we saw that we have higher peaks on the seasonal factor. And so we have higher peaks and also the lows are also more low than in previous campaigns. Also, we have in the last band the residual factor. In this case, it is less volatile product than the zucchini we saw before. And what are the factors that are affecting the residual? Well, there are external factors, but of course, the food sector, we cannot analyze it independently. There are many other factors in the origin of these products, but also the weather in the destination of those products. So if we have an early summer, it is very likely that we start to demand melon or watermelon products. Also, production of the volume of exports and imports from other countries, they also influence here. And here we have a graph where every point in the red line, we have the average price of zucchini for every campaign. And in blue, we can see sort of volume of exports from Morocco. So when Morocco exports lots of products, the price in Spain drops. And then when Morocco do not export many products, the price in Spain goes up. So when we have analyzed all the different factors influencing and the seasonal ones, we use the statistical methodology in order to forecast the evolution of this series. And we have the ARIMA models that we have used in the past in order to forecast future value. And they take into account the seasonal factors, and we can also incorporate or include these external factors that were also impacting on the value and prices. So these products are not really robust when we are lacking of any data. So the performance of this model can be affected negatively if we don't have enough data. This is a basic model that is not able to reflect complex patterns. So they are not able to reflect very sophisticated patterns. And that's the reason why we use the neural network that works a bit better, that are able to take into account these different variations that we find in the agro-food sector. And now I would like to share how these models work using real data. So here in blue, I am showing you the real price of zucchini from last campaign, September 2021, until today. In red, we can see the forecast that we can get using the ARIMA model, and up to 2021, this forecast is falls very apart from the real trend. And we can see that the peaks, the higher and low peaks, are not really well anticipated. They are just, copied from past data. And in green, we can see this model based on neural network that has been done internally in growing data, along with the Polytechnical University in Madrid. And in this model, we can see that it follows more closely the series and the higher and lower peaks. So our model will have a 9 euro cents of offset error, so closer to the real price. And now, if we see how these models work in order to forecast the production of this pear tomato, so we have in red the forecast from an ARIMA estimation, and these fall far from reality, and they are not really able to predict close to the real values. And then in blue we can see the model close to 2021, anticipating the raise and the low trend. And so again, this model has a 9 euro cent offset, while the ARIMA model, it will have double this offset of around 18 cents. But in the end, using these metrics with the absolute error and the percentage errors is not enough to know if we have a good model to rely on. And this is just an example that happens very often when we are working on temporary or a period forecast. So we see here that this model is really picking up very well this prediction of the series. But if we check it in more detail, this model is really using the past prediction, and is a bit like what happens with the ARIMA models. They are based on previous predictions, even if it has a very low offset. So in order for a model to work, it has to be accompanied by a strategy in order to take decisions. We need to know how we are going to use this model and then assess it in order. And something that happens when we are forecasting temporary series of prices. In this case, I have defined the trend as 1 when the model predicts that there is going to be a raise of more than 5 cents, -1 when the model says that we're going to have a drop higher than 5 cents, and 0 when we have any other case. And using these metrics, if we assess the previous models, I am using some confusion matrices that are being used for assess this metric. In the first line, we see the number of times that the model predicts a drop in prices. The second file is the number of times that the model says we're going to have changes higher than 5 cents. And the last line will be the number of times the model predicts we are going to have a raise in prices. And if we see the models, we are in the first column, it is the real data. The second one will be the raises not higher than 5 cents. And then the third one, the one showing raises higher than 5 cents. So in this case, what we can see in the first line, out of the 19 times that the model predicts that zucchini is going to drop more than 5 cents, it is right 17 times, and it fails in 2 occasions. And we can see this data below. We can see that this model has an 89% of accuracy. Every time it predicts a drop, it is accurate 89% of the times. And in this case, the model also on the right-hand side, it is also accurate 89% of the time. And now if we check the percentage of raises, every time the model predicts raises, it is right 86% of the time, and it has 63% of vision of the times raises had happened. And now, when we predict a drop, we have more or less 70% of accuracy. And then in this case, we have an 87% of those drops. And if we are now checking the percentage of increase or raise, we are working on the 60% of the raises, but with 86% of accuracy. So these metrics are helping us to understand much better how this model works, more than having into account the absolute error or the percentage error, because we can see when we can be more certain, where we can trust this forecast. So this can help us to take decisions in the future. And this is all I have to say. Thank you. Yes, a glass of water for Mar, and thanks for your presentation. You know how it works. If you have a question, please raise your hand, and you can ask directly to Mar Grande, who has explained how AI can influence in the future of solar greenhouses. So my first question as an icebreaker, how much time in advance can those models work? Because we are working with products that have a very short life cycle, and maybe 1 week is not enough, because greenhouses are producing, we have the tomatoes there, and we cannot stop production. Or, well, the model that I have shown you is predicting with 1 week in advance. I didn't mention it before, but I had a bit of bad luck because the price of this week, we don't know it because this week is not over yet. But in the last graphs, you have seen the predictions for this week. So, you know, today is Thursday and we almost know the prices for next one, but so we are working with this 1 week forecast because we have talked with many companies in the industry, with traders and marketing companies, and using 1 week in advance, they are strategy. Can we extend this period? Maybe keeping the same accuracy level? No, that's not possible. Not so far. Well, we can give you longer forecasts, but we have to update them on a regular basis because the accuracy rate is not going to be that high. What is the profile of the people working with this sort of models, this data in these trading companies? Well, actually, that is a very interesting question because it is true that we have many people that is working in predictive models, but then in the end, we forget that these predictive models, they belong to data science sector, and everybody takes into account data because we need data to produce these models, but they lack some time of science. So we need scientists to develop those models because we need to understand the rationality that is behind those equations in order to make it plausible in reality. And nowadays, what do you think it is lacking, I don't know, for those models to be implemented in the industry that has a greater length in the food industry in Almeria, or maybe in some other territories and maybe in some other production sites? What is the key about it? Well, actually, what we need trust, and then on the other hand, we need also to work together. So in the end, we cannot develop a predictive model on our own, or companies cannot start defining the strategy on their own. So if we collaborate, work together, we are going to get a greater benefit, especially for the industry. So do we have producers in the solar greenhouses of Almeria or Granada using or leveraging this AI? Well, for food, for price forecasting, no, they are not doing as much as it can be done. So can I give you can you give us an example for next week, or is it troublesome somehow? Well, nowadays I only have the forecast for this week. I don't have the forecast for next week. One of the reasons it is that forecasts are being generated every Friday afternoon, because this is when we know these different external factors that are impacting exports, the prices of other crops. So the evolution of pricing is not something isolated. When we are going to buy tomatoes for a salad, we are going most likely to buy some lettuce. So this is impacting one in each other, you know, and this is the reason why we take into account those external factors. So we only have the forecast for this week. So do you believe that AI is going to produce a great revolution in the agri-food industry we are speaking here? Yes, I believe it will, but it depends, of course, in the trust we put on AI. So many thanks, Mar Grande, for being here with us. A big applause for Mar. And now we're going to know how solar greenhouses work, and another video, and then we will have the last presentation of this
Southern Europe
INVERSOLAR
are an efficient,
session.
innovative and sustainable model, which is capable of feeding 500 million Europeans per year, with a production of over 4.5 million of fruits and vegetables each year. That's 60% of Europeans claim to include in their daily diets. That's why the quality and nutritional properties of fruits and vegetables are becoming more important for consumers. And in the greenhouses of Southern Europe, we work with the best cultivation techniques under the most strict quality controls in order to take care of the flavor and nutritional properties of our products. Hi there! Don't you know us yet? We're the super veggies. My name is Pepper. I'm a source of vitamin B6 and rich in vitamins A, C, and B9. I'm Tomato, source of vitamin C. You'll recognize me for my sweet flavor. I am Melon, rich in vitamins A and C. We are cucumber, aubergine, and watermelon. We contain vitamins A, B6, C, folate, and zinc. They call me Courgette, and I'm a source of vitamin B9. So tasty! If you want to know more, follow the sun. We are from Europe. We are sustainable. The solar greenhouse.
De las palmerillas, y por eso quiero pedir un aplauso muy especial para Gary Stuti. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you. Thank you.
To Almeria Planet.
Welcome to the planet. Welcome to this lap around the sun. My name is Gary Stuti. I am a horticulturist. I'm a plant physiologist. I am a space biologist. I originally was on a faculty at the University of Maryland teaching horticulture, apples, peaches, plums, and pears. Then the opportunity came to go to Kennedy Space Center to evaluate the possibility of growing plants in space and keeping people alive on Earth. So today I want to talk to you about how growing plants in space will enable us to grow these plants on Earth to feed us. I have had the privilege of working for nearly over 20 years with some of the brightest people on the planet at Kennedy Space Center, finding ways to launch things to the rocket. And now, what I decided about 7 years ago was to step away from that and found a company called Synergy, so I can talk about how we can apply that technology here on Earth. I want to share a little bit about that with you today. So where am I? Where is Synergy? Where are we located? I am at the west coast, east coast of Florida. That's at the gates of Kennedy Space Center. You'll see that yellow line is the actual gate. We are surrounded by a booming industry of commercialization of space. It is no longer the purview of the superpowers, of the United States, of Russia or China, but commercial companies are allowing that democratization and access to space. Blue Origin. Before I left here 2 days ago, I felt the power of the launch of the heaviest rocket on the planet pulse through me 12 kilometers from my laboratory. I will return in 2 weeks and hear a rocket that is capable of getting us to Mars. So I am located at an area of innovation of engineers for space. My job, my little job, is to apply that technology to keep us alive down here on Earth. 2 major events are going to occur in the next 30 years. One, we will go to Mars. And when we go to Mars, that will redefine us as a species. This will be a seminal point of our evolution. It will define and describe for generations our potential to turn dreams into a reality. But at the same time, 3 billion people are going to come to the planet. This challenge to feed and sustain a healthy planet will challenge us to redefine who we are, how we envision ourselves on this earth, how we protect it, and how we care for those around us. To look at either one, the problem or the vision, without bringing them together, I feel does a disservice to both. We must look to the stars, but look at the challenges and apply those to Earth. We are going to go to Mars. I know it's hard to believe, but it is an inhospitable place. You step outside, you will die. There is very little atmosphere. It is very cold. It is very hot. The nutrients are not available in the soil, but we are going. 14 satellites have been sent to Mars. 7 of them are actively mapping, searching, finding out locations to land. There have been 6 robots on the surface of Mars. For over a quarter of a century, somebody's job has been to drive a remote-controlled vehicle on the surface of Mars. Think about that. We are going. We are drilling. We are mining. We are doing our due diligence. We are preparing to go. What do we need when we get there? Well, I want to stay alive. And there are 4 things that we need. 1, breathe fresh air. Without oxygen, we will slowly, we close this all up, we will talk, we'll get sleepy, and we will fade. We will suffocate. If we don't clean up that atmosphere, we will suffocate from too much CO2. We need fresh water. Otherwise, we can talk a little longer till we get dehydrated, we say, and we don't wake up. And finally, there is food. So what do we need? We need more or less a kilogram, a little less, 800 grams of oxygen every day coming in. We need about 600, 700 grams dry weight of food per day. We need 5 times that in terms of water just to stay alive. And then the water is essential for the prepping the food, for our sanitation, and our security to keep us healthy and safe. So if you do that arithmetic for a crew of 4 people for 1 year, that is over 40 metric tons of resources necessary just to stay alive. But we're in a closed system. We can't just dump it in the sea. We've got to keep resourcing. That means for every breath in of fresh oxygen, there is a breath out of toxic CO2 that will asphyxiate us if we let that accomplish. If we take this glass of water, it comes out not so fresh water, but we're going to be drinking this glass of water for the next 3 years. We take in healthy food and it comes out not so healthy. We have 40 tons in, 40 tons out. How do you achieve a sustainable maintaining system on the surface of a planet? That's where we began to look at biological life support systems. We take plants who have the capability with light to take our waste CO2 and regenerate fresh oxygen. Through transpiration of the soil, can extract the waste nutrients and contaminated water and produce fresh water. And if we do the dials correctly, we produce food. So biological life support. I began working on that in the early 1990s with the objective of demonstrating the feasibility of keeping 1 person alive for 1 year using biological life support. And the facility that we used was a large chamber that had been a vacuum chamber for the Mercury and Gemini programs. We sealed it up. We put in 96 400-watt high-pressure sodium lights. We closed the atmosphere. We recycled the water. We condensed it and began to grow plants. Over the course of the time, we had 4 levels. I think is probably one of the first examples of vertical farms here on the planet, not by a design, but that was a necessity because this was the resource, a discarded part of a rocket that we would convert. We were utilizing the resources that were available that we would have to adapt for a moon or Mars, and we began to grow plants. So over the next decade, it was a very, very productive program. Over 600 scientific journal articles came out of that. I won't share all of those with you or any of those details, but some things I am very proud of that I think have application here and have altered the way we grow food here on the planet. First, we began to look at the limits of productivity. When you go into a controlled environment, you control the water, you control the nutrients, the carbon dioxide, the light, give the plant what it needs, we were able to uncover the productivity potential that I think had heretofore been unacknowledged. Potatoes, we grew at twice world record field yields in 2/3 of the time. At the date, 4 times the world record yield of wheat anywhere on the planet. The lettuce limits were 20% higher than the models that were coming out of Cornell University. The models that are used by many people worldwide are adapted from the data and the production limits that we set on that time. We evaluated numerous sensors, automation, control technology, varieties, but ultimately by pushing the horticulture, by pushing the possibility of the genetics, we redefined what was possible. And through that possibilities, we ended up at one point at over a year, 418 days of continuous production of recycling the atmosphere, recycling the water, processing the inedible biomass, returning that to the plants. At the end of that program, I had the opportunity to say, we've done this on Earth, can we do it in space? So I was the lead on an experiment that went to the International Space Station, we called PESTO, where we were growing wheat, where we were recycling the water, recycling the CO2, we were growing on different cartridges. We had to develop techniques to recover water, get it to the root system where water floats, soil floats, particle floats. You have changes in convective environments, a very difficult, strange environment where to grow plants. Yet over that time, I think we demonstrated over 7 cycles, taking seeds out and placing them in, that we could grow plants on the International Space Stations as well as we could on Earth. We could reproduce the water, we could get this atmosphere, we could keep people alive. To me, I went from a big chamber to a small chamber and said, let's go to Mars. But to do that, we needed new technologies. The lighting technologies are not that exist were not suitable. They would grow plants, but they are high-pressure sodium lamps. They're hot. They will burn you. There are safety problems. They break. Nobody likes floating glass coming in their ears or their eyes or up their nose. They're replaceable. You've got a 3-year mission of disposables and consumables. You don't want to pack them if you can help it. So you needed reliability, safety, and controllability. That began a journey into the study of solid-state lighting, light-emitting diodes, LEDs. And those techniques have enabled us to go from far away from the plants to growing them close to the plants. We can control and optimize the energy to the lights. But in that process, what did we learn? We learned that we could transform the way we grew plants in much the same way by altering the the quality of CO2, water, and nutrients. We could produce a different plant. Now we can change the biochemistry by light. This is an exciting time to be a plant biologist. The tools have for bringing forth possibilities we did not exist. By simply changing the amount of blue light at the right time during that production of a green lettuce, we were able to induce the bioprotective compounds, the anthocyanins, the carotenoids, the antioxidants that provide health, that provide the bioprotectants, increase the nutrient concentrations by 75%. No new germplasm, no GMOs, no extra energy, just playing with the dials. We can alter the biology to increase the profitability, the nutrition, and the profitability of those crops. By all measures, we have been successful on that. For the past 5 years, astronauts on the International Space Station have been growing their own food. It is in a small chamber. It is lettuce. They're growing tomatoes. They've grown peppers, bok choy, a range of vegetables, not so much for the people fuel, but for the calories, but for those that are there to protect and maintain our health. As has been told earlier, that when we are in space, we are bombarded by a series of events in a strange environments. We have radiation damage. We have all kinds of things. And it is the fruits and vegetables, the colors you see behind us, that are protecting us and maintaining that health. So that is what we focus on. So in this section, that period of 10 to 15 years has established the research that has enabled the possibility of new ways of growing food here on this planet. It is arguable that it has enabled the rise of the indoor agriculture industry for vertical farming, because now you've got the controls and those possibilities and those investments. I like to think that we played some small part in this change of those lights, which are now being mandated all across Europe for greenhouses and that transformation. What am I currently doing in our lab? I am continuing to try and use the space to create opportunities for biological solutions to problems here on Earth. The synergy experiments comes from the symbiosis of plants and microbes in the root system. How do you develop these possibilities that we try and ignore because we can't see them? But where do you have the beneficial relationships? So over a series of 3 flight experiments, one on the last space shuttle experiment, STS-135, I felt honored to be on that final mission, and 2 subsequent as a private entity on a private rocket to a private laboratories, looking at these interactions. And we grew these small payloads with plants and microbes, brought them back, tried to see what change it had incurred on that environment. And so our goal was, once we removed those bacteria, we began to culture them, try and identify them, and then apply them to hydroponic systems. We selected populations that were beneficial on increasing seed germination. We propagate those. We look those in other concentrations, and you're seeing dramatic effects on basil and lettuce. And these are not under stress conditions. My controls are standard hydroponic solutions. These are beneficials that are increasing and accentuating that biological possibilities. Our goal is to find solutions that make the better the best, to take good to better. Some technological, some are genetic, but biological, sustainable systems that can be maintained there on the planet but clearly have applications here on Earth. So that cycle is through that discovery. Use microgravity, using space to discover what is possible, to get the challenges for that very unique environment. Bring that down to the ground, find what works, and translates what's stable, what doesn't change. Scale it up at some pilot project, prove that it is useful, and then move that out and deploy at scale, because we have a necessities for doing that. But we have biological problems, we have light problems, but we have supply problems. As has been mentioned earlier, it takes a lot of fertilizer to grow plants. And a lot of that fertilizer is wasted. I look around this greenhouse and I am impressed with the productivity. It gives me joy, it gives me happiness. I also see that half of the energy, half of the labor, half of the water, half of the nutrients are going into leaves and stems that are going to be composted or dumped. They are wasted resource. We are putting energy out of a system and going forward. So what we find as doing a lot of calculations from our work at Space Center, that it takes about 50% more than your body weight of fertilizer to feed you each year. Those are nutrients taken out of the soil, taken out of the system, and dumped somewhere else. We need to recover those. There are means of doing that relatively easily through just some leaching to get easy ones. Microbially, we can get more of that. So it is relatively straightforward using biological means to get over half those nutrients back from this leaves and stems to feed back into the system to achieve a sustainable, maintainable system. This was demonstrated in our test at Kennedy Space Center for 418 days. Using biological treatments, we need to use those again. But not only how do you do that from the things you know, but there are also resources that we think we cannot access. Some of that was talked about earlier today. And there have been collaborations with the University of North Dakota in these habitats, trying to find out how you would live and work together in a closed system on the moon or Mars. And that one, it gets very cold there. Last time I was there, it was negative 30 C. It was cold. It also gets very hot. And that makes it a very beautiful place to work. Because if you start looking at some of the challenges we're going to have when we go to Mars, and we will go to Mars, is what they call the regolith. There's no organic matter in it. There's a lot of nutrients, but they're not accessible. They're bound up. On part of that, there are materials that will kill the plants, but they are rich in nutrients. So how do you access those? Our thoughts on this particular test, we can take our waste material from our inedible food and biomass, our leaves and stems. We mix it with this inedible and toxic waste there that would be from the soil, and we feed it to worms. And those worms can take that biological waste and they start breaking down and weathering that soil, a biological weathering for releasing. And it takes this waste, releases the nitrogen, and condenses that. It takes this toxic material and turns it into soil. What were our first results? Well, they were really promising to me, because if we could grow on the regolith, we could add water and they would germinate, but they would not grow. They would die. We cannot grow things on the surface of Mars. If we step outside, we will die. We bring the soil in and we try growing in it, it will die. Yet when we bring in the biological system, we bring in our waste, we combine those together, we were able to create things to grow, up to 25% with that regolith. Are we there yet? No. Are there problems? Yes. Are there lots of issues? Yes. Are there lots of possibility? Definitely. We were 75% to a commercial mix on our first shot out. We have a potential for achieving biological solutions for biological problems of food. We are going to go to Mars in the next decades. We are going to do it in style. We are going to do it in some purpose. We are going to do it with a mission. We are going to have new ways of doing it. It will likely be commercial, and we will go so we can change the way that we exist as a species. But all is not well here on this planet. The climate is changing. The weather is getting more extreme. I've experienced in the west coast of the U.S. I just had a hurricane pass across my house that went from nothing to something very quickly. There are fires across the planet. It is a changing environment that is altering the productivity and the predictions that we can have that will only get worse. And they are not all that predictable, and we're going to have to learn to adapt. And this challenge of changing an environment with less resources is coming in the face of 3 billion people coming to the planet. That's a big number. I don't know what it means. So I had to look it up. And what that means is the entire population of Europe. It is the entire, plus the population of North America, plus South America, plus Australia, plus Japan, plus a little bit sliver of North Africa. And they are all coming to dinner. And we are setting the place now to feed them. They are coming in some of the poorest areas in the world, some of the least areas to maintain those populations. And that is going to define us as a species as how we address that issue. If you look at the map, that population is at your doorstep. So what we are looking is how do we solve and maintain that? We have these challenges of the political disruptions and the pandemic brought to the fore issues we had tried to ignore. But these are these split images that I took within a few kilometers of my home at the beginning of the pandemic, where there were empty shelves, but the inability to get the food to market. So we were dropping that. Food lines that I had never seen before. So you had excesses of food, excesses of demand. The system broke. But the beautiful thing is, it only took a few months for it to recover. And it had been mentioned earlier, there was no widespread starvation. There was no great famine. The system had adjusted because of various resiliencies and the opportunities to adapt and react from agriculture and this entire system. To meet those challenges of the 3 billion, and to maintain that with less resources is we're going to require sustainable systems, and the conventional agriculture will not work. It cannot meet the challenge that is in front of us, which is why I am absolutely delighted to be here. Because from the past one greenhouse, less than a lifetime ago, it has grown to the greatest concentration of greenhouses here on the planet. Solar greenhouses, controlled environment agriculture, indoor protected agriculture, by whatever name. It has taken a place that was one of the poorest in Europe, that is lacking water, but took the resources that were available, an abundant amount of sunlight, water from the soil, and used that as effectively and efficiently as possible. Are there problems? Yes. Are they being met? Maybe yes, maybe no. I say yes. You've gone from one to the largest concentration on the planet. It is a success story that you need to be proud of, because where I look, I see sensors, I see automated control, I see matching demand to what the plant needs. I see optimization of resources that are available. Those same challenges that come from living on Mars, going to a different planet, that we must use what we have in the most efficient and effective means possible. The possibilities that existed today did not exist in terms of controls, in terms of systems. So I'm going to leave you with a couple of thoughts. We live on an extremely fragile planet. We are protected by a very thin atmosphere. We are under amazing challenges, but it is our home. This is where we live. And that small corner where we are standing there at that area is now feeding Europe. 60, 70% of whatever produce, with immeasurable consequences in terms of health and well-being of a population. You're not supplying the calories, although you're supplying some, but what you are really supplying is the health and well-being of a population. That challenge must be met for 5 times that population of Europe in half the time that you have developed this industry here. There is much work to be done. There is much work to be able to improve the efficiency of water use, nutrient use, nutrient recovery, but it is achievable. And a reason I have faith that it is achievable because in a lifetime of what you have achieved here. And it is imperative that we do it, not just for the profitability, not just because I like doing it, not because it is fun, but because it's for them. They are the ones that are going to have to solve the problems. We have set the stage. We are providing the tools. It is imperative upon us to give them the vision and imagination that comes from going to Mars, from meeting the challenges that are achieving the impossible, to achieve the very difficult that is going to be on Earth. We must both look to the stars, we must look down to the Earth to apply those challenges here, and then together, let us all work together and feed the planet. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gary. I have a translator for you.
Muchas gracias.
Okay.
Tengo un traductor para ti.
Si tenéis alguna pregunta, alguna cuestión que trasladar a Gary Stuti, es el momento de hacerlo. Yo sí que tengo algunas, ha sido emocionante, sobre todo escuchar la parte final dedicada a los invernaderos solares, a este método de producción que tratamos de dar a conocer a través de este programa de promoción europeo Qt Solar. Ha dicho que en una década estaremos en Marte. En una década son 10 años.
Oh, in 10 years we will
Bueno,
have...
en 10 años tendremos robots controlados
we will
por...
have a human being on Mars. That first person is on the planet today. That first person to step on the Mars is alive. It might be you, it might be your grandchild, it might be somebody completely unknown, but they are on this planet now.
Muy interesante. Y para producir vegetales en Marte, ¿necesitaremos una estructura parecida a esta como la que nos encontramos en este momento? Gary, ¿se parecerá mucho, poco, nada?
The structures that we will need on Mars will not be at all like this because they have no atmosphere. So if you have a balloon that is maybe 3 times atmosphere, it will pop. You take the tire on the automobile. It is 5 times the atmosphere of a pressure. You pump it too far, it pops. If you're in a laboratory with the tank of liquid nitrogen that is feeding a machine, that is 1,000 times more concentrated in the atmosphere. That's the power of the structure we need to prevent us from exploding. So we will have new structures, new transparencies. We will very likely be covered by soil. We will have collectors on the surface bringing the lights down so that we can have a place that looks like this inside that surface. Because we must adapt to the environment that we are going. Very much as the environment that has been adapted here has taken advantage of the natural resources, mitigating the hazards. When we go to Mars, we must mitigate the hazards and take advantage of the resources.
Tenemos una pregunta, María Docabo, por favor.
You are using all the
muy
technology
claramente que para usar tecnología para mejorar los cultivos, incluso herramientas genéticas y
not allow farmers here to use this technology, or if you think that we are going to change this philosophy in the future?
So there's two questions to that. The first is the work that we had done has been using existing germplasm that has not been CRISPRs. We are looking at that potential. There is certainly work going on to identify and put in the traits that are optimal for high CO2 for the environments using the advanced CRISPR technologies. The regulations across the globe, whether here in the EU or South America or North America, are social questions that are beyond me, but those solutions have got and that they provide are going to have to be met somehow. Now, whether we can get to that end result by altering the environment, by better selection, by more targeted selection, I don't know. Time will tell. The problems will define the solutions. So, time will tell.
Contestado a tu pregunta, no sé si tenemos alguna cuestión más. Decía Gary Stuti que tenemos un reto, que es seguir alimentando a la población, ya sea en la Tierra, en Marte, en la Luna o donde sea, pero tendremos que seguir alimentando a una población que además se va a multiplicar y que necesita de más producción de alimentos saludables, además. Gary va a pasar unos días en Almería, en la costa de Granada. ¿Qué le interesa más conocer in situ de este método de producción a lo largo de estos días?
Oh, so much to see. That the abilities to have taken a diverse population, a stakeholders that have come together and build this ecosystem of productivity, of how that works without a major influx of people, many small landholders, greenhouses that allow the entire tide to rise. That is what interests me up and down that cycle. And how that has been incorporated into the desert is, making this desert productive is an area that is, very, very interesting and delightful to me, as well as being right on the coast of the sea.
¿No tenemos más cuestiones? ¿Sí?
Yes,
Antonio.
Thank you very much, Gary, for this enlightening and stimulating talk. We need definitely to talk for a long time. So I was just wondering, apart from plants, which are fundamental and all that, is there any research about growing edible microbes in space?
So the question is, are we growing edible microbes, mushrooms, fungi, different types of food? And the answer to that is definitely yes. So that you are looking at how we can grow resources that can convert this inedible biomass into something edible with minimal amount of inputs of sunlight or energy. So how do you do that? How are you using things like algae or fungi or other cultures? Any resource that we need are being looked at or have. Some are better than others. But that fundamental philosophy is that there is no waste, that you only have a resource that you must manage to try and recover. Because if you don't, the supply cost and resupply make this an unsustainable mission for either a single mission or for us as a species. So finding those resources, whether they're biological, they're technological, they're chemical, they're physical, to reutilize these waste materials to recycle, reuse, and recover. We will be drinking my cup of water, I will be drinking for the 3-year duration of the mission. I want the technology to work well so we can sustain, health and the system so we do not die.
Pues bueno, pues esa es una de las palabras que seguramente más han sonado hoy aquí, sostenible, sostenibilidad. Gracias, Gary Stuting, por estar con nosotros. Thank you very much. Tenemos que dejarlo aquí por hoy. Mañana continuamos a partir de las 11 en directo desde este invernadero solar de la Estación Experimental de las Palmerillas y también en directo a través de la emisión online desde la página web qtsolar.es y a través también de nuestras redes sociales. Voy a pedirle a nuestros ponentes, al presidente de Horti España, al representante de APROA que nos acompañe. Vamos a hacer una foto de familia de este primer día y así nos marchamos, nos despedimos. Gracias por su atención. Mañana más en INVERSOLAR 2022. Ya saben, el Congreso Europeo sobre los invernaderos.
On solar greenhouses.